Flightless Goose by Eric D. Goodman, with illustrations by Natalia A. Goodman. Gilbert was very much like the other young geese in his flock. He liked to swim, and run, and fly, he loved to play with the other geese. He liked to eat grass by the shore, and drink the pond's water. He ate the breadcrumbs that people from the surrounding houses fed to him and the other geese. Johnny always brought the freshest bread. One day, when Gilbert was playing with his friends, there was a terrible accident. Gilbert fell into the street and a car hit him. The driver tried to stop, but it was too late. Gilbert's friends came to help him. Dr. Fowler told Gilbert that he was going to be all right, except for one thing. He would no longer be able to fly. At first, Gilbert's friends were helpful and said nice things to him when they played together. But in time, they began to make fun of him and to play tricks on him. They played their goose games, and then, all at once, they flapped their wings and flew from one end of the pond to the other, leaving poor Gilbert all alone. Gilbert swam as fast as he could to reach them, but as soon as he did, they flapped their wings and took flight again. They started calling Gilbert names like, "Gilbert, the flightless goose! Gilbert, the flightless goose!" "Don't worry," Johnny told Gilbert. "They're just jealous because you're different. But everyone is different. One day, they'll see that you're as good as they are." As the days grew cooler and cooler, the elders prepared for their migration. Each winter, the flock flew south for a warm holiday in Florida. When spring sprung each year, they returned home to their pond. "I missed you," Johnny would say when he welcomed them back. But this winter, when the geese flew south for their warm holiday, Gilbert was left behind. At first, Gilbert had fun, sliding on the iced-over parts of the pond and waddling through the snow and running around and around the pond. Since he could no longer fly, Gilbert spent a lot of time making his legs stronger. But Gilbert soon became lonely and cold. He appreciated the visits from Johnny and the other people who lived by the pond, but he missed the other geese. As winter began to thaw, Gilbert saw two strangers sneaking around the pond.
"This is where the geese live,"
one of them said. The other looked at Gilbert.
"If they're all as plump as that one, we're in for good eating."
The two men laughed, "Ha, ha, ha, ha," and then left in their van. Days later, the flock returned. "Hey, Gilbert the Flightless Goose is still here." Gilbert was happy to see his old friends again, even though they continued to pick on him. They were surprised to see how fast Gilbert could swim and run. A few days later, the two creepy strangers returned to the pond. The two men sneaked up on the geese and began to snatch them. They threw the geese one by one into large sacks. The men were very quick. The geese ran as fast as they could, but they were not fast enough. The two men caught them all. All but one. Gilbert, with his fast feet, was so swift that the two strangers didn't even see him escape. The creepy strangers hurried to their van.
"We have cages ready for you back home. After you're nice and plump, we'll eat you one by one for supper." The frightened geese honked inside the sacks. Gilbert ran all the way to Johnny's house, where he found his friend sitting outside. "Have you come for some bread, you silly goose?" Johnny asked. Gilbert honked with fear, and Johnny understood that it was something more serious than that. Gilbert led Johnny to the van, where the two men were getting ready to leave. "Release those geese," Johnny demanded. Gilbert squawked the same. Johnny and Gilbert caused such a commotion that people from the neighboring houses looked to see what was happening. "They're kidnapping the geese," Johnny yelled. Gilbert honked loudly. One of the adults called the police. The policeman came and took the criminals to jail, but not until every last goose was set free. The geese cheered. "Hooray for Gilbert, the fastest goose of the pond! Hooray for Gilbert, our hero!" From that day on, the other geese never made fun of Gilbert again. Gilbert proved that even though he could not fly, there was something that he could do even better: run! Gilbert was very much like the other geese in his flock, but in some ways, he was not. And that is what made him great.